Death Club.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Me and Oscar today, as we are talking about an interesting manga here, if you can call it that. The series is called Ningen, for me anyways, that's what I call it. But the official title is what, Oscar?
Dog nigga?
That's right. You guys may have seen this series pop up. Like, the way I saw it was through memes. Sometime last year, I was like, okay, what is this? Like, this sounds ridiculous, and decided to check it out. And before we get into there, let's get some backstory on here. This is written by a person that goes by DH Animations. He has a YouTube channel, and his channel mainly focuses on fantasy fights between shonen characters. So it's a lot of Dragon Ball Z what-if fights. And one day he decided, you know what? I'm going to make a manga. And he made one, and I think he kind of fell off on it, and then he decided to start a different one and go from there, and that's where we get Ningen. He doesn't draw the one we're talking about. What he draws is a webcomic, which would be similar in vein to One Punch Man. There's actually a lot of similarities with One Punch Man with this series. The artist is a person called Serbian Hero. He is a big One Punch Man fan. You can find him on Twitter. And he's got some pretty good art. I like the way he does his color shots and, you know, everything on his feed over there. And then in 2019, he messaged DH Animations like, hey, do you want to do a collab like Murata and One do with One Punch Man? And so they talked, and I think about a month later, the first manga, quote-unquote, chapter for Ningen came out. And currently we are at 23 chapters, and they try to publish about every 3 weeks. So almost a monthly series here. And if you go to Amazon, you can actually buy the first 2 volumes. Volume 2 just came out last week as of this recording. And just to talk about those real quick, I bought them. A nice quality. The only complaints is it does read like a manga, right to left. But the cover is flipped. So the front, there's the last page. So that's the only problem it has. Because it's a digital series and it's uploaded on like Manga Dex or Pototo, some of those spread shots, when you open it on a 2-pager, the crease just goes at a spot that's not really the best when you try to read something. There's like one specific page early on in volume 1 where it's just nothing but a giant box of text, and it kind of cuts out. So that's the only bummer about it. So hopefully moving forward, Serbian Hero can try to rework that stuff, because just like Yusuke Murata, he redraws certain parts for the physical volumes. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my initial questions. If, you know, some of the scans that we see are basically just printed onto page, or if it was going to be, you know, cleaned up a little bit. That is shitty to hear. I think that, you know, initially, you're just probably going to run into common problems like printing issues. Maybe some, like how you said, those spread shots for those 2 pages that, you know, cover across the whole thing, and you get some stuff that's cut off, or maybe some text that, you know, just couldn't fit. It is interesting to hear about that, you know, that kind of like reverse last page on the front thing. I really hope that moving forward, you know, that is taken care of for volume 3 and, you know, forward, because I would hate, you know, for the entire serialization, if it, you know, gets that far, for him to really be putting in money and time into these quantities just for every single one to be like having the same issue, you know? So maybe they'll have like a QA or something that they can go into before they release volume 3 so that it can get sorted out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think they mainly go through Amazon for these. That's where you can buy them. Another American manga that we'll eventually talk about, but the Four Lords, they were on the podcast like a few years ago on an Anime Expo episode. They write a series called Curseborn Saga. It's like the same type of quality as far as like the material is for the pages to the material of the volume covers is the same here as Ningen, but their covers are normal. It reads right to left like a manga, and the covers aren't misaligned like here. But they don't solely publish in Amazon. And that might be a thing here with this series, which leads to an interesting situation. So, again, what's the series called, Oscar?
Dog Nigga.
that became a problem with Volume 2, because Volume 1 has that name. But as Serbian Hero was getting ready to submit Volume 2 for sale, Amazon said, actually, we can't call it that, guys. I'm sorry. You're going to have to change it. And so he decided, well, okay, I guess moving forward, the physical volumes, it's just going to say Dog Ningen on the front. And they picked that because Ningen basically kind of means human. So it's dog human when you translate it, which is our character Rex, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, I wonder if it's because they sell only on Amazon, like that's an issue. Maybe like part of their quality check is to make sure that the front of the cover is in a normal position rather than what a manga usually has, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because on Batoto, it shows the Volume 3 cover that's eventually going to be released when that's completed. And it's,
Yes.
Trish on the cover, but it doesn't say Dog Negan. It says Dog Nigga. So I'm wondering if maybe they're going to kind of go back and forth on that, or if they're going to release like two different covers. I mean, they could have, Dog Nigga on the back, Dog Negan on the front, if they're just going to, kind of just mirror the cover for each volume.
Well, on Manga Dex, because that's where Serbian Hero originally posted it before it got taken down.
Right.
Was that this year, right? Sometime this year?
Yeah, I want to say it was earlier this year. I think it was maybe towards the end of last year and continue. Oh, no, actually, yeah. I think it was towards the beginning of this year. I think it was around January, February was when it went down.
Yeah. So the way it's set up on Manga Dex, well, at least now anyways, I didn't know before because I didn't read it before it got taken down. But the chapters are bundled by volumes. So he just draws the volume covers ahead of time. And he'll eventually know which chapters are going to be for which volume. That's probably why it still has the original title, because the book just came out last week. And I think the week prior is when he hit that problem with Amazon. So then him changing it to Dog Negan. And I think he did say on Twitter that moving forward, the physicals will be called that.
Did you already mention the prices of the volumes on Amazon?
One thing I didn't mention about it is the pages are black. Like all the border stuff is black, and I found that interesting. Compared to normal manga, it's always white. So you always see the edge of the physical as white.
Right.
But here it's black, so that's pretty cool. And these are big boy mangas. So they're about as big as Viz Signature physicals. So stuff like Fire Punch, for example, and Hell's Paradise. It's that size. And volume 2 is $15. I think that's a fair price. That's like roughly the standard for a manga this size.
Yeah, I would say that's a perfect price. Try to check out the first couple chapters yourself just to see if it's more or less your thing. But honestly, I would say anybody who just ends up checking this out is more or less going to be like hooked on it by the end of chapter 1. It's pretty intense from the jump.
Yeah, man. So let's go ahead and dive in. This series is about our main character named Rex Wisconsin. He is how old was he? He's 19, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there. He's high school age. He's more or less already a full-fledged adult.
So he is our main character, and his backstory is one day his mom, who is a literal dog, is in an alleyway, and his father is drunk and decides to rape the dog. When Rex is growing up, his mom dies, and now he wants to get revenge by looking for his father and raping him, so that way he feels the same pain as his mom did. And that's how we start the series. And that's just the beginning of the absurdness that this series offers.
And I know this is probably going to be a far reach here, but so far since I've read it all the way up to the current chapter, you get a really big, relatable feeling to Rex. Like, you don't even really need to be a half dog, half man to really understand where he's coming from. And more or less, honestly, man, he's one of the most humanizing characters out of all the characters in the entire series. I can't really say much about character development because it kind of seems like development is usually focused around the in-between between fighting, hiding, running back, fighting again, and then doing it, cycle for over and over again. From what I've seen so far, you really get a good idea about Rex. I liked, I already thought of a nickname for him, like pretty much good old boy. He has those little demons that we all fight with, but other than that, I just think that he's probably in the perfect spot in order to be, considered like the forefront for a new type of series, like between like half man, half beast. Like I know like we have other stuff like Beast Stars and those other Netflix series that they have, FIFT, but just altogether, I think that the way that DH Animation and Serbian Hero are doing this is actually a very unique thing in itself. You don't get a lot of, like, I would say, American niche type heroes when it comes to these kind of mangas. And it's nice, it's definitely a great refresher. And altogether, Rex is just, like, he's my nigga, dude. He's that good old boy type of nigga. He's the fucking man, Bran.
Yeah, he's a great guy. His and of course his background is, well, his character description, of course, is he's just a normal guy. He's like 6'3" roughly, and everything about him is normal except for his head is a dog head. And because of that, he got made fun of a lot. They call him a freak, a monster. That's the biggest thing about the series here, is Rex just wants to be a normal guy and fit in. He wants to feel like he has a purpose in the world, but every time he gets a chance to do something good with his abilities, he gets shunned away once his hoodie comes off and they see his face. Plays more into some other characters that we get into, like I'll just say the main heroine. Right now she's the antagonist, but Trish, a similar backstory, as she is known as Cat Bitch. And it's the same thing. Her mom was a cat, and, the story follows from there. She finds similarities to Rex, and I think we're just going to get more deeper understandings of that as we go further. And I'm looking forward to that stuff. And like you said, it's not something you normally see in normal manga because, well, this isn't a normal manga. This is published out here in the West, right? So you have that whole different perspective of countries coming into this.
I want to say personality, like we all have that, I want to say that stereotype, pretty much like what you would expect from somebody to come from when you think of a certain country. One of the reasons why I would always open up to this being, besides just obviously being in the West in itself, is just like we're taking, these stereotypes and personalities of an African American male in this series. It's really easy to tell from Rex, and it to be fair, like I can understand why nobody would also notice, but Rex is half black and half dog. The only technically white part about Rex is his fur, which is only on his face, but he has a black body. You know what I mean? So it's not just like the stereotypical, okay, like you have like your centralized character, and of course he's like light skinned. It's a dark skinned main character. Those also come with their own prejudices. You're going to be a loner. You're going to be seen as a type of person who can't really like have emotions or should be able to show his emotions like most stereotypical black males. So this is really, really, really good for a lot of people to get their hands on, because it really shows you what it's like or what an African American goes through to a certain extent, besides like all of this, extra stuff, like, the half dog shit. I don't want to get into it and say it's political or anything, but I think that it's a very beautiful thing when we can try to really show people what it would be to be this type of person and still like have some sort of pride. You know what I mean? Because of course you always want to have some sort of pride being who you are no matter what. And that's who Rex is. That's how he comes off as, regardless. He's pretty much that person who started with, at the worst possible point at anybody's life, started literally from below the bottom, and he still has to make his way up through life, let's say about 20 years later, as this loner kid, being able to do anything by himself. I think that that's a really good thing. And we get that same thing from, some of the other characters that we've seen so far, like Neo and Trish. They're not just standard regular characters, again, light-skinned characters. We all have like people of color within the series. It also, I would say, kind of goes into issues when it comes to race too, not just like a species thing, but like actual race. And that's like a little bit later, like towards volume 2 and volume 3. So I don't want to give too much away on that, but yeah, I mean, like it'll definitely get you hooked. It'll definitely get you like some insight on shit, like this is what somebody might actually go through in this day and age. You know what I mean? So it's really great, man. Like This is definitely like something that could be on the precipice of being like really great. Like I'm talking about world renowned great. I just can't wait to see what's next, you know?
Yeah, same here. And, the build up leading up to those topics being the main focus of the series is great as well, because the main hook is the absurdity, of course, with the title, our main character. But then, very early on, it's just nothing but high shonen action as Rex is fighting a character you just mentioned, Neo. And it's literally just pure one-punch action. And it's really good stuff. For the fighting choreography, and the art style really complements what's going on there. Again, a lot of influence from One and Yusuke Murata's work with One Punch Man. That stuff hooks you in, and it's still apparent as we go further and further, especially with the last arc, right? There were some really good fights there, but now it's time to dive into the main story. And I think with the ridiculousness, it's really just there to grab attention. If you go on YouTube and look up reviews for the series, it's just everyone saying like, so, hey, I finally read this, and mainly because of how crazy of a title this sounds.
Yeah, it's an eye catcher.
It really is, especially when you dive further into the series, and the current arc that just ended, it's a little much. Just saying with the scenario involving the, what's his name, Kyle, this kid Kyle, who is basically a Kyle from the memes. Yeah, that when we got to that part of the manga, I was like, oh, we're going into this kind of territory. All right, like I appreciate that we could still get this absurdness throughout the series, even though we're getting deeper into the story.
That's great. And, it goes really more into like all of these American things that are very, very real to young readers who are very aware. People who are still in school, people who just finished graduating. People who, graduated not that long ago when the world wasn't so PC. Yeah, we definitely knew or at least heard of these events, whether they were isolated or not. It's definitely a real thing. And yeah, man, I really can't wait to see what else we're going to really touch up on. I liked the whole thing with Kyle. I'll be honest with you. I liked, that they didn't have to make him a person of color. They just kind of be like, okay, yeah, Kyle is Kyle, like Columbine Kyle. You know what I mean? Like this is pretty much where, they talk about this and that aspect. And I'm like, okay, great. You're right. That's super nitty gritty and it needs to be talked about because that's an eye opener. And you know what I'm really interested in? I'm really interested to see or hear from the other take, like from outside of American eyes. Like I want a Japanese reader to really get into Dog Nigga and just tell me like, hey, is this how shit really is in America? And I'll be like, yeah. Like, isn't this some of the bullying shit that I see in manga, how that shit is over there? It goes like hand in hand, you know what I mean? And it's just, I think like these kind of things will definitely bring people closer together. There's a little bit of comfort in tragedy, unfortunately. And when we all go through something traumatic, it takes a lot of energy from a lot of people to really get, and that's a little nuance, a little something that they don't talk about in this series, but something that they show you a lot of. A very empathetic, I would say, side to every character for almost any situation that's, that they go through within the series. And that's a really good point to bring up too. It's, again, talking about humanity and humanizing people, even though they're literally half of a person. You know what I mean? But they're more human than full-fledged human beings.
And yeah, I agree too. I think this current arc with Kyle was great. He was written very well. His attitude and everything, building up towards chapter, I think it was 19. Rex is just being called out, and we really get deep into that message in the arc. All of it was fantastic, and yeah, I am curious to see where we're gonna go after something like that. What's also interesting is the situation with Rex's father. As we go further into the story, we find out he is actually a more important character than we initially thought, and I feel like that should be coming up real soon. I'm looking forward to that, as well as understanding what this berserk situation's going on with Rex with his inner demon.
Yeah, I definitely got some big berserk vibes when I saw that. I was kind of hoping that we were going to get just a little bit more from that, but you know what it is? If you pay close attention, to some of these moments where he's like left within his own feelings of sorrow and remorse, like pretty much right on the precipice of when like that feeling comes out. You can see the scribbles on his dad's face. The point is, we're not supposed to know what he looks like yet. A little later, like I want to say towards the end of the current chapter, he becomes incapacitated to an extent. Like he's just unable. I'm talking about Rex, by the way. He's just unable to fight. And then it's up to Neo and Trish to kind of help him see his way out of there just before the end of the arc. Now, one thing that I noticed is that you saw like what we assume is that feeling of uncertainty, of remorse. The little black squiggle that kind of appears in the center of his head and then eventually like grows into that black dog thing and talks to him. But after he's done talking to the black dog, like I said, becomes incapacitated, that black squiggle is still there. And it's just sitting there in his head. And that black squiggle is the same exact black squiggle that hides his dad's face. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this little thing right here is what he's getting from his dad. This right here is something that we're not paying attention to until like pretty much it blows up into this little power that I'm sure that his dad must realize. He's like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna like put the hypothetical out there. So let's just assume this guy has a power that is like Diavolo status. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I can do. You know what my power is. I have to keep myself, my identity. Everything is secret. Oh shit. Here you are, literally Trish. So Rex is actually literally Trish from JoJo Part 5, right? And he's like, okay, I might have this power too, or whatever it is. He doesn't know what it is yet. Nobody is aware of it, but it's able to manifest itself within him, right? So I'm thinking that he wants him eliminated because he doesn't want him to manifest his power, because this power could potentially harm him, find him, do whatever it is that, would end up helping him achieve his goal of, raping his dad in his little black bum hole. I'm looking forward to seeing if anything comes out of that. Yeah.
And, I'm sure once we get to that point where we'll understand the reasoning of why he wants to rape his dad, like this urge he has. Again, like DH Animations, he mentioned like, oh, dude, I was just super edgy, man. Like I wanted to do something wild, but now we really want to tell something serious. So I'm sure that's going to connect to something. If I had to guess, that's part of his dad's plan of if whatever's happening with this inner demon and Rex's powers itself, because he's pretty OP, if we have to be honest here. He's taking bullets to the face, and he's just basically Saitama for the most part.
Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4 gives huge looks at like the full strength of Rex. My personal favorite isn't until I want to say like chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 10, chapter 11, where you get to see some of his other abilities. Really quick, like I'm going to give shouts out to the best 3 characters of the series so far. Max, Grims, and Peanut. The 3 best characters of the series so far. By far, dude. So fucking cool. Oh my gosh. And now, not to ruin anything, because I do want you guys to read into the series, but chapter 10, chapter 11, 11.5, definitely worth a read.
Yeah, when I saw those characters pop up, I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting anything like that to happen. And then when you get you get the understanding of why that works, it's like, oh, this is perfect. Heck yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, oh, that's a plus, and I'll take it.
Yeah, all around, really great series, man. Pretty much all the characters are written fantastically. Even these 2 random cops that show up in the latest arc, I thought they were actually going to be pretty important characters. But, I don't know. We'll still see, right? There's still chapters to come out, and at least one of the cops isn't done yet. So I wonder if how big of an impact they'll have. And I really can't wait for more to come out. So I think with that, guys, it's safe to say we can wrap up this episode here. If you go to the description of the episode, I'll have links for DH Animation's YouTube channel as well as Serbian Heroes Twitter. And there was some news updates about Dog Negan in Volume 2. I was looking at real quick, and I guess it's not because they had a physical for volume 2 already printed with the original title, and I guess it gets rejected by Amazon. So I guess, yeah, it is just really submitting to Amazon itself instead of, I guess, them being the sole manufacturer and provider of the series type of thing. He says if you want the original title on volume 1, you should get it now before they, I guess, update it with the with Dog Ningen on there. Yeah, volume 1 is still on sale, so I would say grab it up before the change. And one final thing about the volume 2 that I like is on the back it has a nice colored drawing from Serbian Hero, and like his art style is sort of like a painting with the way he uses the brushes, and so they're super nice. The volume 1 back is my favorite because it's Rex wearing his hoodie, and just the style that he used for it was really nice. And then volume 2 has
yeah, I gotta give it up for Neo. He's a pretty cool character. It's really interesting.
So again, guys, you could read this on Batoto or Manga Dex. I don't know if Serbian Hero is going to keep publishing it on Batoto, but for sure on Manga Dex it'll be there. He has the links in his description on Twitter, and he also posts the link whenever a new chapter drops, which again is roughly every 3 weeks. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the episode, man. Thanks for sticking around. Have you read this series? Would love to hear your thoughts. You can send those to unverspodcast@gmail.com, and we can bring those up on the next episode as always. And then you can follow us on social media at unverspodcast, anywhere you go. That way you can stay up to date with the latest episodes. So thank you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.